The queen collapsed in the throne room, flames licking beneath her skin like trapped lightning. 3 massive titans, her mates, her protectors, her supposed salvation, stood frozen at the edges of the chamber, unable to approach. Not out of cruelty, out of terror. Because the last time Caspian had touched her, his instincts nearly crushed her throat. The last time Malik kissed her, she screamed. And Varen? Varen couldn't even meet her eyes anymore. Tessa Vale had saved them from eternal winter. Now, spring was killing her, and the men who claimed to love her could only watch her burn. If you want to see how she survives what's coming, stay until the end, like this video. Comment what city you're watching from. Let's go. Tessa woke to the smell of scorched silk. Again. She rolled onto her side, wincing as the sheets clung to her damp skin, and stared at the blackened handprint seared into the pillow beside her head. Her handprint. She'd done that in her sleep, the 4th time this week. Outside the tall windows of her chambers, the citadel gardens bloomed in violent excess. Vines crawled up stone walls overnight. Flowers the size of dinner plates burst open at dawn, their petals thick and fleshy, colors too bright to be natural. Spring had returned to the kingdom of the Titans after centuries of frozen silence, and it was eating her alive. Tessa sat up slowly, every muscle protesting. Her body felt like it had been wrung out and left to dry. The power she'd absorbed when she broke the winter curse, ancient, wild, meant for gods, not humans, coiled inside her like a second heartbeat. Sometimes it purred, sometimes it snarled. This morning, it felt like broken glass grinding through her veins. She pressed a hand to her sternum and breathed through the pain. The door opened without a knock. "You're awake." Varen's voice was flat, clinical. He stepped inside carrying a leather satchel, his silver-white hair tied back, his expression carefully neutral. He looked like he was visiting a patient, not his mate. Tessa's chest tightened for an entirely different reason. "I'm awake," she said. Varen set the satchel on the table near the window and began unpacking vials, powders, instruments she didn't recognize. He moved with precision, his hands steady. He didn't look at her. "Any new symptoms?" he asked. "Define new." "Tessa," she exhaled. "The usual, heat, pain. I burned the pillow again." Varen's jaw tightened, but he nodded and made a note in the small leather journal he carried. Always notes, always records. As if documenting her deterioration would somehow prevent it. "I need to take another blood sample," he said. "Of course you do." This time he did glance at her, brief and sharp. "If you'd prefer I stop trying to save your life." "I didn't say that." "Then give me your arm." Tessa stood and crossed to him, barefoot on the cold stone floor. She extended her left arm without a word. Varen rolled up her sleeve and paused. New bruises had appeared overnight, dark purple splotches blooming across her forearm like ink stains. He touched one gently, and Tessa hissed. "They're spreading faster," Varen muttered. "I'm aware." He prepared the needle with the same detached efficiency. Tessa watched him work and tried not to think about the fact that he hadn't kissed her in 6 days, hadn't touched her beyond what was medically necessary in 9. The bond between them, once warm, electric, impossible to ignore, felt muted now, distant, like he was standing on the other side of a thick pane of glass. The needle pricked her skin. Blood welled up, darker than it should be, almost violet in the morning light. "Varen," she said quietly. "Not now. You can't avoid me forever." His hand stilled. For a moment she thought he might actually respond. Then he withdrew the needle, pressed a cloth to her arm, and turned back to his instruments. "I'm not avoiding you. I'm working. You're terrified of me. I'm terrified for you. There's a difference." "Is there?" He slammed a vial down harder than necessary. The glass didn't break, but the sound echoed. When he turned to face her, his eyes, pale blue, usually so controlled, were blazing. "Do you have any idea what it's like?" he said, voice low and shaking. "To feel the bond screaming at me to touch you, to hold you, to—" He stopped himself. "And knowing that if I lose control for even a second, I could kill you?" Tessa's throat tightened. "You think I want this distance?" Varen continued. "You think I enjoy watching you deteriorate while I play scientist? I'm trying to fix this, Tessa. I'm trying to find a way to keep you alive. So forgive me if I don't have the luxury of—" The door slammed open. Malik stood in the doorway, breathing hard, his dark eyes wild. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, and there were scratches down his neck, fresh ones. "She collapsed again," he said. Tessa's stomach dropped. "Who?" "One of the courtiers, third one this week. They're saying it's the power, that it's leaking out of you and poisoning the citadel." "That's not—" "I know it's not true," Malik interrupted. "But they're scared, Tessa, and scared people talk." Varen cursed under his breath and began packing up his instruments. "We need to move up the timeline." "What timeline?" Tessa demanded. Neither of them answered. Malik crossed the room in 3 long strides and gripped her shoulders. His hands were shaking. "You need to stay inside today. No public appearances, no council meetings, just stay here." Tessa pulled back. "I'm not hiding. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be smart." "Smart?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "I'm dying, Malik, slowly, and the 3 of you are acting like I'm made of glass. You won't touch me, you won't talk to me, you won't—" "I can't touch you." Malik's voice cracked. "Do you understand? 2 days ago, I kissed your forehead and nearly broke your collarbone because I couldn't control the bond. Yesterday, Caspian tried to help you up the stairs and you screamed. We're not avoiding you because we want to. We're avoiding you because we're fucking dangerous." The silence that followed was suffocating. Tessa looked between them, Varen's clenched jaw, Malik's haunted eyes, and felt something inside her crack. "Then what's the point?" she whispered. Malik flinched. "What? What's the point of the bond? What's the point of being mates if you can't even stand near me?" "Tessa, get out. Don't— both of you, get out." Varen picked up his satchel without a word and left. Malik lingered, his expression anguished, but Tessa turned her back on him. After a moment, she heard his footsteps retreat and the door click shut. She stood alone in the center of the room, surrounded by blooming death and scorched silk, and let herself shake. What? The throne room was an atrium of glass and iron designed centuries ago to let in light during the endless winter. Now, with spring returned, it was almost unbearable. Sunlight poured through the vaulted ceiling, illuminating every corner, every crack, every weakness. Tessa stood at the center of the dais, flanked by empty thrones. Caspian's throne, Malik's throne, Varen's throne, all empty. She'd insisted on attending the council meeting alone, partly out of spite, partly because she needed to prove to herself, to them, to everyone, that she wasn't fragile. The council members sat in a semicircle below her, their faces carefully blank. Lord Eris, sharp-featured and silver-tongued. Lady Marin, who smiled like a blade. Commander Thorne, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Your Majesty," Eris began, his voice smooth. "We're concerned." "About?" "Your health." Tessa's jaw tightened. "I'm fine." "With respect, Your Majesty, you don't look fine." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Tessa straightened her spine. "The transition has been difficult, but I'm managing." "Are you?" Lady Marin leaned forward, her expression sympathetic in a way that felt like a threat. "We've heard reports. Servants collapsing near your chambers. Plants growing wild overnight. The Titans themselves refusing to— "The Titans are managing their own transitions," Tessa interrupted. "Spring awakens old instincts. It's temporary. And if it's not, it will be." "But what if—" The room tilted. Tessa blinked, and suddenly the floor was rushing up to meet her. She heard someone shout, felt hands catching her, too many hands, too rough, and then the world went white with pain. When she opened her eyes, she was on the floor, gasping. Blood trickled from her nose. Her hands were smoking. The council members had backed away, staring at her like she was a live grenade. "Your Majesty," Commander Thorne said carefully, "perhaps you should rest." Tessa tried to push herself up, but her arms wouldn't cooperate. Her vision swam. She could feel the power inside her thrashing, wild and formless, trying to claw its way out. "I'm fine," she managed. No one believed her. Eris cleared his throat. "We believe it would be prudent to postpone further public duties until you've recovered." "I don't need to recover. I need— Your Majesty." Marin's voice was soft, pitying. "You're scaring people." The words hit like a slap. Tessa looked around the room, at the fear in their eyes, the way they held themselves ready to bolt, and felt the last thread of her composure snap. Get out, she said. Your Majesty, all of you, get out. They fled. Tessa stayed on the floor, breathing through the pain until she heard footsteps behind her. Don't. She didn't turn around. Don't say anything. Caspian stopped a few feet away. She could feel him there, massive and still, radiating tension. You collapsed, he said finally. I'm aware. In front of the entire council. I'm aware. A pause, then quieter. You're bleeding. Tessa touched her nose and her fingers came away red. She stared at the blood, too dark, almost black, and laughed. It sounded unhinged even to her own ears. This is what you wanted, isn't it? She said, for me to stay inside, to hide, to stop pretending I'm strong enough to... That's not what I want. Then what do you want, Caspian? Another pause. Longer this time. I want you alive. Tessa finally turned to look at him. Caspian stood in the shaft of sunlight, his massive frame casting shadows across the floor. His dark hair was tied back, his expression unreadable. But his hands were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. You can't even look at me, Tessa said softly. That's not true. You haven't touched me in 2 weeks. Because the last time I did, I nearly broke you. I'm not broken. Not yet. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and final. Tessa forced herself to her feet, swaying slightly. Caspian moved as if to help her, then stopped himself. The aborted gesture hurt more than the collapse had. I saved you, she said, her voice shaking. I broke the winter curse. I bound myself to all 3 of you because I thought... She stopped. I thought it meant something. It does. Then act like it. Tessa, no. You don't get to keep me at arm's length and pretend it's for my own good. Either I'm your mate or I'm not. Either this bond means something or it doesn't. You don't get to have it both ways. Caspian's expression cracked, just for a moment. She saw the anguish beneath the control, the way he was holding himself together by sheer force of will. If I lose control, he said quietly, I will kill you. Do you understand? Not hurt you, not scare you, kill you. And I would rather cut off my own hands than let that happen. Tessa's eyes burned. So what am I supposed to do? She whispered. Just wait? Hope the power stops eating me alive before you 3 work up the courage to touch me again? Varen is terrified. Malik can barely look at me. And you... Her voice broke. You're the worst of all, because you're acting like I'm already dead. That's not... Isn't it? Caspian opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time since she'd known him, he had no answer. Tessa turned and walked away, her steps echoing in the empty throne room. She didn't look back. If she had, she might have seen the way Caspian's shoulders shook, the way he pressed a hand to his chest, as if the bond itself was tearing him apart. But she didn't look back. She was too tired to care. That night, Tessa dreamed of fire. She stood in the center of the Citadel garden, surrounded by flowers that screamed. Their petals were mouths, opening and closing, shrieking in voices that sounded like her own. The vines wrapped around her ankles, her wrists, pulling her down into the earth. And standing at the edges of the garden, watching, were 3 shadows. Massive, silent, unmoving. She called out to them, but her voice wouldn't work. She reached out, but her arms wouldn't move. The vines pulled tighter, dragging her under, and the shadows just stood there, watching. Tessa woke with a scream caught in her throat. Her chambers were dark. The moon hung low outside the window, casting everything in silver. For a moment, she just lay there, breathing, trying to convince herself it was only a dream. Then she felt it. The power inside her had shifted. It wasn't thrashing anymore. It was listening. Tessa sat up slowly. The air around her shimmered with heat. When she looked down at her hands, they were glowing, faint, pulsing, like embers. No, she whispered. Not now. Please. Not now. The glow brightened. Tessa stumbled out of bed and pressed her hands against the cold stone wall, trying to ground herself. But the power didn't care. It wanted out. It wanted to burn, to expand, to consume. She could feel it reaching for the bond, reaching for Caspian, for Malik, for Varen, And if it found them, if it pulled them in while she was like this? The door burst open. Varen stood in the doorway, his expression wild. I felt it. What's happening? I can't, Tessa gasped. I can't control it. Breathe. Just breathe. I'm trying. The glow spread up her arms. The stones beneath her hands began to crack. Varen crossed to her in 2 strides, grabbed her shoulders, and the bond surged. Tessa felt it like a whip crack through her chest. Varen's instincts roared to life, primal and uncontrollable, and his grip tightened to the edge of pain. She saw his eyes flash, saw the struggle, and then he was shoving her away hard, sending her sprawling onto the floor. Don't touch me, he snarled. Don't! He staggered back, breathing hard, his hands shaking. Tessa stared up at him from the floor, her heart pounding. I'm sorry, Varen said hoarsely. I'm sorry, I can't. He turned and fled. Tessa stayed on the floor, the glow fading from her hands, and finally let herself cry. Because she understood now. She was alone. Truly, completely alone. And no one was coming to save her. Morning came too bright and too fast. Tessa didn't sleep after Varen left. She sat on the floor of her chambers, watching the sky turn from black to gray to gold, feeling the power inside her pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. It had quieted after the surge, retreating back into whatever dark corner of her body it had carved out for itself. But it was still there, still waiting, always waiting. When the sun finally cleared the horizon, she dragged herself upright and dressed in the plainest thing she could find, a simple gray tunic and trousers. No jewelry, no crown, nothing that screamed queen. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Hollowed cheeks, dark circles, skin so pale it seemed translucent. The bruises on her arms had spread overnight, creeping up past her elbows like spilled ink. She looked like she was dying, because she was. Tessa turned away from the mirror and headed for the door. If she was going to burn out, she'd do it on her feet, not cowering in her chambers while the Citadel whispered about her weakness. The hallways were quieter than usual. Servants hurried past without meeting her eyes. Guards stationed at corners stiffened when she approached, their gazes sliding away as if looking at her directly might be dangerous. She felt their fear like a physical thing pressing against her skin. By the time she reached the lower levels of the Citadel, her hands were shaking. The training yard was an open courtyard surrounded by high stone walls. Normally, it would be full of soldiers running drills, sparring, sharpening weapons. Today it was empty except for one figure moving through a weapons form in the center. Malik. Tessa stopped at the edge of the yard and watched. He moved like violence contained in flesh, all controlled power and lethal grace. His shirt was discarded, his dark skin gleaming with sweat despite the morning chill. Twin blades flashed in his hands as he spun, slashed, pivoted. It was hypnotic. Beautiful in the way a storm was beautiful. Then he saw her. The blades froze mid-swing. Malik went utterly still, chest heaving, eyes locked on hers. For a moment, neither of them moved. You shouldn't be here, Malik said finally. I needed air. There's air in your chambers. There's suffocation in my chambers. Malik's jaw tightened. He lowered the blade slowly, deliberately, as if any sudden movement might set something off. Tessa, don't. She stepped into the yard. Don't tell me to rest. Don't tell me to be careful. I can't hear it again. Then what do you want me to say? I don't know. Anything. Nothing. Just... She stopped, her throat closing. Just don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I'm already gone. Malik flinched. The blades clattered to the ground as he dropped them, his hands curling into fists at his sides. That's not... Isn't it? Tessa crossed her arms, hugging herself. You can't touch me. You can barely stand to be in the same room as me. What am I supposed to think? That I'm trying not to kill you? The words exploded out of him, raw and jagged. That every instinct I have is screaming at me to claim you, mark you, hold you so tight nothing can take you away. And I can't, because if I give in even a fraction, I'll break you. Do you understand how that feels? To want something so badly it's tearing you apart and knowing you can't have it? Tessa's breath hitched. Malik took a step toward her, then stopped himself. I dream about you, he said, his voice dropping. Every night. I dream I'm holding you and you're warm and safe and whole. And then I wake up and remember that I'm the danger, that I'm the thing you need protection from. So yeah, maybe I can't look at you the way I used to. Not because you're dying, because I'm the one who might kill you. The silence that followed was broken only by the distant sound of wind through stone. Tessa swallowed hard. I'm not fragile. You collapsed yesterday, in front of the entire council. I had a bad moment. You're having a lot of bad moments. Because I'm alone! The words ripped out of her, louder than she intended. Because the three of you are so busy trying to protect me that you've left me with nothing. No touch, no comfort, nothing. And I'm supposed to just… what? Be grateful? Be patient. I'm dying, Malik, and I'm doing it alone. Malik's expression crumbled. You think I want this? I think you're scared. Of course I'm scared. I've watched you waste away for weeks. I've watched the power eat you from the inside. I felt the bond screaming at me that something's wrong and I can't fix it. So yeah, I'm terrified. And maybe that makes me a coward, but at least I'm a coward who's keeping you alive. Are you? Tessa's voice went quiet. Dangerous. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're just watching me die slowly. The words hit like a blade between the ribs. Malik stared at her, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with something that looked like anguish. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Tessa stood alone in the training yard, surrounded by discarded weapons and echoes, and wondered if she'd just severed the last thread holding them together. She found Varen in the library. It was a massive circular room built into one of the Citadel's towers, shelves climbing 3 stories high and filled with books so old their spines had cracked and faded. Varen sat at a table in the center, surrounded by open text, scattered notes, vials of strange liquids. He didn't look up when she entered. I'm busy, he said. I can see that. Then leave. Tessa closed the door behind her and crossed to the table. She picked up one of the books, something about ancient binding rituals, and set it down again. What are you looking for? A cure. For? You. The word hung in the air like an accusation. Tessa sat down across from him. Varen, look at me. I'm working. Varen, I said I'm working. She reached across the table and shoved his notes aside. Papers scattered. One of the vials tipped over, spilling pale green liquid across the wood. Varen's head snapped up, his eyes flashing with anger. What the hell are you… Stop, Tessa said. Just stop. Stop researching. Stop experimenting. Stop treating me like a problem you can solve if you just work hard enough. That's exactly what you are. The bluntness of it stole her breath. Varen stood abruptly, his chair scraping against stone. You're a problem. A very specific, very deadly problem. You absorbed power meant for beings who've existed for millennia. Your human body can't contain it. It's breaking you down from the inside, cell by cell. And if I don't find a way to stop it, you'll be dead in a month. Maybe less. So yes, you're a problem. And I'm going to solve it whether you like my methods or not. Tessa stood too, her hands trembling. I'm not a problem. I'm your mate. You're both. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you let me bind myself to 3 creatures who can't even touch me without risking my life. Varen went very still. You think I wanted this? I think you saw an opportunity and you took it. You needed a queen. You needed someone to break the curse, and I was convenient. That's not… Isn't it? Tessa's voice rose. Be honest, Varen. If you'd known this would happen, that I'd become this fragile, dying thing you have to manage from a distance, would you still have let me bind myself to you? The question hung between them, sharp and unforgiving. Varen's throat worked, his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. Something in Tessa's chest shattered. Get out, Varen said. What? Get out. I have work to do. Varen, get out. Tessa turned and left before he could see her cry. By midday, the Citadel was buzzing with rumors. The Queen had fought with Lord Malik in the training yard, shouted at him, driven him away. The Queen had disrupted Master Varen's research, destroyed his work. The Queen was unstable. The Queen was dangerous. The Queen was losing her mind. Tessa heard the whispers as she walked the corridors, saw the sideways glances, felt the weight of judgment pressing down on her from all sides. She wanted to scream. Instead, she went to the one place she thought she might find peace, the throne room. It was empty when she arrived. Sunlight poured through the glass ceiling, illuminating the three massive thrones on the dais. Caspians, Maliks, Varens. She stood at the base of the steps and stared up at them, feeling small and hollow and utterly alone. "They're worried about you." Tessa spun. Commander Thorne stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He was older than the other guards, gray threading through his dark hair, scars marking his hands and face. He'd served the Titans since before the Winter Curse. If anyone understood them, it was him. "Everyone's worried about me," Tessa said. "It's exhausting." Thorne stepped into the room, his boots echoing on stone. "They're not wrong to be. I know that. Do you?" He stopped a few feet away, studying her. "Because from where I stand, you look like someone who's trying very hard to pretend everything's fine." Tessa laughed, bitter and sharp. "What else am I supposed to do? Rest. Recover. Let the healers—" "There's nothing to recover from. The power's eating me alive, and no amount of rest is going to change that." Thorne's expression softened slightly. "Then what's your plan?" "I don't have one. That's not good enough." "I know." Tessa sank down onto the bottom step, suddenly too tired to stand. "But I don't know what else to do. The Titans can't touch me. The Council thinks I'm weak. The power inside me is getting stronger every day, and her voice cracked, "I don't know how to fix any of it." Thorne was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down beside her, groaning slightly as his knees creaked. "Can I tell you something?" he said. "Can I stop you?" A ghost of a smile. "The Titans aren't infallible. They're powerful, yes. Ancient, nearly immortal, but they're not perfect. And right now they're terrified." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." Thorne turned to look at her. "You're the first mate any of them have had in over 1,000 years. The first bond strong enough to survive the curse. And they're watching you die, slowly, painfully, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. That kind of helplessness, it breaks people, even Titans." Tessa's throat tightened. "They love you," Thorne continued, "more than I've ever seen them love anything, and that's why they're so afraid. Because love makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability is something they haven't felt in centuries." "So what am I supposed to do?" Tessa whispered. "Just accept that I'm dying? That they'll never be able to touch me again?" "No." Thorne's voice was firm. "You fight, you survive, and you prove to them, and to yourself, that you're stronger than this curse." "I'm not strong. I can't even stand in front of the Council without collapsing." "Strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up." Tessa looked at him, this scarred warrior who'd survived centuries of winter, and felt something in her chest loosen slightly. "Thank you," she said. Thorne nodded and stood, his knees creaking again. "For what it's worth, Your Majesty, I believe in you, even if you don't believe in yourself." He left before she could respond. Tessa sat alone in the throne room, surrounded by empty seats and broken bonds, and made a decision. If no one was going to save her, she'd save herself. She started small. That evening, she went to the healer's wing and demanded access to their records. They tried to refuse, gently, respectfully, but firmly. She ignored them and walked in anyway. Spent 3 hours reading every report Varen had filed about her condition, every blood sample, every theory, every failed experiment. The picture that emerged was grim. The power inside her was foreign, incompatible with human biology. It was burning through her cells faster than her body could regenerate them. Varen had tried everything: binding spells, dampening rituals, alchemical solutions. Nothing worked. The power was too strong, too wild, and it was tied directly to the bond with the Titans, which meant severing it would kill her just as surely as the power would. She was trapped. Tessa closed the last report and sat back, her head pounding. There had to be another way. Something Varen hadn't considered. Something... The door opened. Caspian filled the doorway, his massive frame blocking out the light from the corridor. His expression was thunderous. "You shouldn't be here," he said. I needed to see the records. Varen said no visitors. Varen doesn't control me. Caspian stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. The space suddenly felt much smaller. What are you looking for? A solution. There isn't one. Not yet. Tessa? He stopped himself, his jaw working. You need to trust us. We're doing everything we can. Are you? She stood, paper scattering from her lap. Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you're all so busy protecting me that you've forgotten I'm part of this too. We haven't forgotten. Then let me help. You can't. I can't what, Caspian? I can't think. I can't research. I can't do anything except sit in my chambers and wait to die. Her voice rose. I'm not helpless. I never said you were. You treat me like I am. Caspian's hands clenched. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Tessa threw the report she was holding. It hit his chest and fell to the floor. I saved you. I broke the curse. I bound myself to 3 titans because I thought... She stopped, her breath hitching. I thought it would mean something, that I'd matter. But all I am is a problem you're trying to solve. That's not true. Then prove it. Tessa stepped closer, her heart pounding. Touch me. Hold me. Prove that I'm more than just a dying human you have to manage. Caspian went very still. You know I can't. Can't or won't. Both. The word was a knife between them. Tessa felt something inside her break. Then we're done. What? I can't do this anymore. Her voice was shaking but steady. I can't keep pretending that this bond means something when all it's done is turn me into a burden. So I'm done. Done waiting. Done hoping. Done burning myself out for men who can't even stand to be near me. Caspian's expression cracked. Tessa, don't. Leave me alone, Caspian. Please. I said leave me alone. For a moment, she thought he might refuse, thought he might cross the room and damn the consequences. But he didn't. He just stood there, his massive shoulders sagging, looking more broken than she'd ever seen him. Then he turned and walked out. Tessa sank to the floor, surrounded by scattered reports and empty promises, and let the power inside her flare unchecked. It burned through her veins like liquid fire, scorching everything it touched. She didn't try to stop it, didn't try to control it. Let it burn, she thought. Let it all burn. The room filled with heat. Papers began to smolder. The air shimmered. And somewhere deep in the citadel, 3 titans felt the surge through the bond and knew that something fundamental had shifted. She didn't remember falling asleep. One moment she was burning. The next, she was waking up on a cot in the healer's wing with no memory of how she'd gotten there. Her body ached like she'd been beaten. Her throat was raw. When she tried to sit up, a hand pressed gently on her shoulder. Easy. It was a young healer, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair. Her name tag read Alara. What happened? Tessa's voice came out as a croak. You collapsed. Again. Alara helped her sit up slowly, propping pillows behind her. One of the guards found you unconscious in the records room. You'd burned through half the archives. Tessa's stomach dropped. I didn't mean... I know. The power got away from you. Alara's expression was sympathetic but firm. You're lucky you didn't burn the whole wing down. Where are they? The Titans? Alara hesitated. Lord Caspian is outside. He's been there all night. And the others? Master Varen is in his laboratory. Lord Malik is... She trailed off. I'm not sure where Lord Malik is. Tessa's chest tightened. Alara moved around the cot, checking Tessa's vitals with practiced efficiency. Your temperature is still elevated, pulse erratic. The bruising has spread further. She paused. How long has it been since you ate? Tessa couldn't remember. I'll have food sent up. Alara's tone left no room for argument. And you're to stay here for observation, at least until... The door exploded inward. Malik stood in the doorway, breathing hard, his eyes wild. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. His shirt was torn. He looked like he'd been in a fight. Out, he said to Alara. Lord Malik, she needs... Out! Alara fled. Malik crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed Tessa's face in both hands. His grip was too tight, almost painful, but she didn't pull away. She couldn't. The bond between them roared to life, electric and overwhelming. "Don't you ever do that again," Malik said, his voice shaking. "Don't you ever burn yourself out like that. Do you understand me? I didn't mean to. I felt it through the bond. I felt you giving up, letting go, and I—" His voice cracked. "I can't lose you. I won't." "Malik," he kissed her. It was desperate and messy and too hard, his teeth catching her lip, his hands tangling in her hair. The bond surged between them, wild and uncontrolled. Tessa felt his instincts rising, felt the danger, but she didn't care. She kissed him back with everything she had, pouring weeks of loneliness and fear and longing into it. Then the pain hit. Tessa gasped against his mouth as the power inside her flared, reacting to the bond, to his touch. It felt like her ribs were cracking, like her chest was splitting open. She tried to pull back, but Malik's grip tightened, holding her in place. "Let go," she managed. "No." "Malik, you're hurting." "I don't care." The power surged again, harder this time. Tessa screamed. The sound tore through the room, raw and agonized. Malik finally released her, staggering back, his chest heaving. Tessa collapsed onto the cot, gasping. Blood trickled from her nose. Her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't control them. Malik stood frozen, staring at his hands like they were weapons. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't—" "Get out," Tessa whispered. "Tessa, please, just go." He left. Tessa curled onto her side, arms wrapped around her ribs, and felt the power inside her writhe like a living thing. It was getting stronger, hungrier, and she was running out of time. 2 days later, the enemy arrived. Tessa was in her chambers when the horns sounded, 3 sharp blasts that echoed through the citadel like a death knell. She stumbled to the window and looked out over the walls. An army stood at the gates, not a large one. Maybe 50 soldiers, all dressed in armor that gleamed like molten gold. At their head rode a figure on a horse the color of flame. Even from a distance, Tessa could feel the heat radiating off him. The Summer King's emissary. She'd heard stories. The Summer Court had been enemies of the Titans for centuries, their power rooted in fire and conquest. They'd waited out the winter curse, biding their time. And now, with spring returned and the Titans' bond fractured, they'd come to test the new queen's strength. Tessa's hands clenched on the windowsill. The horns sounded again. By the time she reached the throne room, Caspian, Malik, and Varen were already there. They stood in a line before the thrones, massive and imposing, radiating barely controlled violence. The air around them shimmered with heat. Tessa stopped in the doorway. Caspian turned first. His eyes widened. "You shouldn't be here. It's my citadel. It's too dangerous. I'm the queen." She stepped into the room, chin high despite the way her legs trembled. "Or have you all forgotten?" The 3 Titans exchanged glances. Before anyone could respond, the great doors swung open. Guards filed in first, forming a corridor. Then came the emissary. He was tall and lean, his armor polished to a mirror shine. Flames danced along the edges of his gauntlets. His face was sharp, beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. When he smiled, it didn't reach his eyes. "Well," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "The Titans and their broken little queen. How charming." Tessa felt the insult like a slap. Caspian stepped forward, his voice a low growl. "State your business." "My business?" The emissary tilted his head. "I bring greetings from the Summer King and an offer. We don't need—" "He wants the queen." Silence crashed through the room. The emissary's smile widened. The Summer King has heard of her condition, the power she carries. He believes he can stabilize it, cure her. All she needs to do is come with me, willingly. "Absolutely not," Varen said. "She's dying anyway," the emissary continued as if Varen hadn't spoken. "Why not let her die trying to save herself?" Malik's hands curled into fists. "Get out, now, before I tear you apart." The emissary laughed. "Such hostility. I'm only offering help." "You're offering a cage," Caspian said. "Perhaps." The emissary's gaze slid to Tessa. "But at least it's a cage where she might survive. Can you say the same?" Tessa's breath caught. The emissary took a step closer. The flames on his gauntlets brightened. "What do you say, little queen? Will you take the Summer King's offer, or will you stay here and burn?" Every eye in the room turned to her. Tessa looked at the three titans, at Caspian's clenched jaw, Malik's wild eyes, Varen's pale face, and made her choice. "I'll go." The room erupted. "No!" Caspian's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He moved before anyone else could react, positioning himself between Tessa and the emissary. The air around him crackled with barely restrained violence. "She's not going anywhere," he said. The emissary's smile never wavered. "That's not your decision to make." "The hell it isn't." Tessa stepped around Caspian, her legs shaking but her voice steady. "Actually, it is my decision, and I've made it." "Tessa, no," Malik started. "This is insane," Varen interrupted. "You can't trust the Summer King. He'll use you, drain your power, and discard whatever's left." "Maybe," Tessa kept her eyes on the emissary. "Or maybe he can actually help me, which is more than anyone here has managed to do." The words landed like stones. Varen flinched. Malik looked like he'd been struck. Even Caspian's shoulders tensed, his massive hands curling into fists. The emissary tilted his head, studying her with renewed interest. "Trouble in paradise?" "Shut up," Tessa said. Then to the Titans, "I'm dying. We all know it. Varen's tried everything and nothing works. The power's getting stronger every day and I'm getting weaker. So either I sit here and waste away, or I try something different." "This isn't different," Caspian said, his voice low and dangerous. "This is surrender." "No, this is survival. You don't know what you're agreeing to. And you don't know what it's like." The words exploded out of her. "You don't know what it's like to feel yourself dying inch by inch while everyone around you treats you like broken glass. I can't even touch the men I'm bonded to without screaming. So forgive me if I'm willing to take a chance on something, anything, that might actually fix this." Silence fell over the throne room like a shroud. The emissary clapped slowly, the sound echoing off stone. "How dramatic. The Summer King will be delighted." "When do we leave?" Tessa asked. "Tessa." Varen stepped forward, his expression anguished. "Please, just give me more time. I'm close to something, I can feel it. You've been close for weeks, and I'm still dying." "This is different. I found a reference in one of the old texts about power transference. If we can redirect the energy back through the bond, you mean use us as conduits?" Malik shook his head. "That could kill all of us. Or it could save her." "We don't know that." "We don't know anything," Varen's voice cracked. "But I'm not letting her walk into the summer court to be some tyrant's experiment." The emissary sighed dramatically. "As touching as this is, the king doesn't like to be kept waiting. So, little queen, are you coming willingly, or do my soldiers need to encourage you?" The threat hung in the air like smoke. Caspian moved. One moment he was standing still. The next, he had the emissary by the throat, lifting him off the ground with one hand. The guards drew weapons, but froze when Malik and Varen flanked Caspian, their own power flaring to life. "You're not taking her," Caspian said, his voice barely human. The emissary smiled despite the hand crushing his windpipe. When he spoke, his voice was strained but amused. "Kill me, and you start a war you can't win. Not with your bond fractured and your queen dying. The Summer King has waited centuries for an opening. Don't give him one." Caspian's grip tightened. The emissary's face began to turn purple. "Caspian, stop." Tessa's voice was quiet but firm. "No. You're making it worse." "I don't care." "I do." She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating off him. "Put him down, please." For a moment she thought he wouldn't listen, thought his instincts would override everything else and he'd snap the emissary's neck right there. But then his hand opened and the emissary dropped to the floor gasping. "Wise choice," the emissary wheezed, rubbing his throat. "The king appreciates restraint." "Get out," Tessa said. "But we haven't finalized." "I said get out. I need to think." The emissary's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled, sharp and knowing. "Of course. I'll give you until sunset to decide. After that, my offer expires." He gestured to his guards. "Come, let's give the happy family some privacy." They left in a procession of gold and flame. The moment the doors closed, Caspian rounded on Tessa. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking I'm out of options. So you decide to throw yourself at the Summer King? I decided to stop waiting for someone else to save me. We're trying. Trying isn't good enough. Tessa's voice rose. I'm burning from the inside out, and you three can't even touch me without it getting worse. So yeah, maybe the Summer King's offer is a trap. Maybe he'll use me and throw me away. But at least it's something. At least it's a choice I'm making instead of just sitting here and dying slowly while you all feel guilty about it. This isn't about guilt, Malik said. Isn't it? Tessa turned to him. You can barely look at me anymore. None of you can. And I get it, I do. But I can't keep living like this. I can't keep being the problem everyone's trying to solve. You're not a problem, Varen said quietly. Then what am I? You're our mate, our queen. The woman we... He stopped, his throat working. The woman we can't lose. The raw honesty in his voice nearly broke her. Tessa closed her eyes and breathed through the pain radiating from her chest. Then help me. Really help me. Not with more research or more theories. Show me there's actually a way forward that doesn't involve me burning out or becoming someone else's prisoner. The three titans exchanged glances. We need to try the transference, Varen said finally. Malik shook his head. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous at this point. Not like this. If the power redirects wrong, it could kill all four of us. And if we do nothing, she dies anyway. Varen's voice was hard. At least this way we're fighting. Fighting blindly. Better than standing still. Caspian had been silent through the exchange, his expression unreadable. Now he looked at Tessa, really looked at her, and something in his eyes shifted. What do you want? He asked. Tessa blinked. What? Not what we think you should do, not what's safest or smartest or most strategic. What do you want? The question hung between them, impossibly heavy. Tessa thought about the summer court, thought about walking into unknown territory with an enemy king who saw her as a tool, thought about the transference ritual, untested, potentially lethal, built on theories and desperation. Neither option was good, but one of them was hers. I want to try the ritual, she said. Varen sagged with relief. Malik cursed under his breath. Caspian just nodded, like he'd expected it. When? Tessa asked. Tonight, Varen said, before the emissary's deadline, before anyone can stop us. What do we need? Time, space, and trust. Varen met her eyes. If this goes wrong, I know. I mean it, Tessa. This could kill you, kill all of us. I know, she repeated, but I'd rather die trying than waste away waiting. Something passed between them then, an understanding, a shared desperation. For the first time in weeks, Tessa felt like they were actually on the same side. We'll need the others to leave the citadel, Caspian said. The emissary, his soldiers, anyone who might interfere. I'll handle it, Malik said. Give me 2 hours. Make it 1. Malik left without another word. Varen began pacing, muttering to himself about preparations and components. Caspian stayed rooted in place, watching Tessa with an expression she couldn't quite read. You're sure about this? He asked when Varen was out of earshot. No, Tessa admitted, but I'm sure about dying if we don't try. That's not the same thing. Close enough. Caspian crossed to her slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. When he reached her, he stopped just out of arm's reach, close enough that she could feel his heat, far enough that the bond didn't scream danger. If this works, he said quietly, things will be different. How? The bond will stabilize, the power will distribute. We'll be able to... He trailed off. Touch me? Yes. Tessa's breath hitched. And if it doesn't work, then we'll die together, which is better than watching you die alone. The simplicity of it, the raw, unflinching honesty, made her chest ache. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For pushing you away, for saying you didn't care. Her voice cracked. I was scared and angry and I took it out on you, all of you. Caspian's expression softened. We gave you reason to be angry. You were trying to protect me. We were trying not to kill you. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. He took a half step closer. Protection is about keeping you safe. What we did was keep you isolated, and I'm sorry for that. Sorrier than I know how to say. Tessa felt tears prick her eyes. I just wanted to matter. You do, more than anything. Then why does it feel like I'm fighting alone? Because we failed you. Caspian's voice was rough. We let our fear override everything else. And that ends tonight. Whatever happens with this ritual, we face it together. No more distance. No more holding back. What if you lose control? Then you stop me. Or Varen does. Or Malik. But we don't run anymore, agreed? Tessa nodded, not trusting her voice. Caspian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek. Just the barest touch, feather light and careful. The bond surged between them, electric and overwhelming, but he held steady, controlled. We're going to fix this, he said. I promise. Tessa leaned into the touch, despite the pain blooming in her chest. Don't make promises you can't keep. I never do. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Tessa retreated to her chambers while Varen gathered his materials. She couldn't sit still. Couldn't rest. The power inside her had been restless all day, like it sensed something coming. It coiled and uncoiled in her chest, sending sparks of pain down her arms with every breath. She stood at the window watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Outside the walls, she could see the emissaries' camp. Fires burned in neat rows. Soldiers moved between tents. They looked organized, patient, like they had all the time in the world. A knock at the door made her turn. Malik entered without waiting for permission. His face was bruised, knuckles bloody. He'd been in a fight. The emissary's soldiers tried to enter the citadel, he said, before she could ask. I convinced them to wait outside. How many did you have to hurt? Does it matter? I suppose not. Malik crossed to the window and stood beside her, close but not touching. They watched the camp together in silence. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? For kissing you, for losing control, for... He stopped, jaw clenching. For making everything worse. You didn't make anything worse. I hurt you. The power hurt me. You just triggered it. That's the same thing. No, Tessa said. It's not. You kissed me because you wanted to, because you couldn't stand the distance anymore. I understand that. I feel it too. Malik's hands curled into fists. I should have been stronger. You were strong enough to pull back. That counts. Does it? Tessa turned to face him. Do you regret it? Kissing me? Malik's eyes went wide. No, never. He exhaled shakily. I regret hurting you. I regret not being able to control myself. But I don't regret wanting you. I couldn't, not if I tried. The honesty in his voice made her chest tight. Then stop punishing yourself, she said. Save that energy for tonight. We're going to need it. Malik studied her face like he was trying to memorize it. Are you scared? Terrified. Me too. They stood there as the sun bled red across the horizon, not touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But for now, it had to be. The preparations took longer than expected. Varen moved through the citadel like a man possessed, gathering components from a dozen different sources. Rare herbs from the gardens that bloomed only at twilight. Crystals from the deepest vaults, their surfaces marked with symbols older than the citadel itself. Vials of liquids that shimmered with their own inner light. Tessa watched him work and felt useless. She wanted to help, but every time she tried, Varen waved her away. Said she needed to conserve her strength. Said the ritual would demand everything she had and more. So she sat and waited, and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. By the time full dark fell, her nerves were frayed to breaking. They gathered in the old temple beneath the citadel, a place Tessa had only heard about in stories. The entrance was hidden behind a false wall in the lowest level, accessible only through a passage so narrow they had to walk single file. The temple itself was a circular chamber carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Torches burned along the walls, their flames pale blue and eerily silent. Ancient symbols marked every surface, the walls, the floor, even the domed ceiling high above. They pulsed faintly, like they had their own heartbeat. This place is old, Caspian said, his voice echoing. Older than the Citadel. Older than the Titan's claim to this land. The magic here runs deep. Will that help? Tessa asked. It should. The ritual needs a stable foundation. This is as stable as it gets. Varen had drawn a circle in the center of the floor, using crushed silver mixed with something dark that Tessa didn't want to identify. Candles marked the cardinal points, north, south, east, west, each one as thick as her arm and carved with more symbols. In the middle of the circle sat a low stone platform, just wide enough for one person. The surface was worn smooth by age, stained dark in places. Tessa stared at it and felt her stomach turn. You'll lie there, Varen said, following her gaze. We'll position ourselves around you, creating a conduit through the bond. The goal is to draw the excess power out of you and redistribute it between the four of us equally. And if the power doesn't want to be redistributed, Tessa asked, then we force it. How? Painfully. Varen's expression was grim. The power is wild, untamed. It won't give up easily. We'll have to wrestle it into submission, and that means pushing the bond to its absolute limit. It's going to hurt. All of us. But especially you. How bad? Bad enough that I'm giving you something for the pain. He pulled a vial from his satchel, dark glass filled with liquid that looked black in the torchlight. This will dull the worst of it, but it'll also make you disoriented, weak. You need to stay conscious through the whole ritual or it won't work. Tessa took the vial. Her hands were shaking. What happens if I pass out? The power backflows, the bond breaks, we all die. Right, no pressure. Malik stepped closer, his expression tight. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. We could still. There's no other option, Malik. We all know it. Tessa looked at each of them in turn. This is our best shot, our only shot. So let's not waste time pretending otherwise. Caspian nodded slowly. She's right. Varen checked the circle one last time, adjusting a candle here, redrawing a symbol there. When he was satisfied, he stepped back and took a deep breath. It's time, he said. Tessa uncorked the vial and drank. The liquid was worse than anything she'd tasted before. It burned going down, thick and viscous, coating her throat like oil. The aftertaste was copper and ash. Almost immediately, a strange numbness spread through her limbs, making her fingers tingle. That's horrible, she managed. It gets worse, Varen said. Lie down. Tessa climbed onto the platform. The stone was cold against her back, leaching warmth from her body. She stared up at the ceiling, at the symbols pulsing in the darkness, and tried to steady her breathing. The three titans took positions around her, Caspian at her head, Malik to her right, Varen to her left. They stood just outside the silver circle, their expressions grave. Once we start, we can't stop, Varen said. Not until the power stabilizes or until one of us dies. Do you understand? Tessa's throat was too tight to speak. She nodded. Are you ready? No. Yes. Varen knelt and placed his hands on the edge of the circle. The silver began to glow, soft at first, then brighter, then bright enough to hurt. The symbols on the walls responded, lighting up in sequence like stars being born. Caspian and Malik followed suit, their hands joining the circuit. The bond between them flared to life. Tessa gasped as she felt it, all three connections opening at once, raw and unfiltered. Caspian's steady strength crashed into her like a wave. Malik's wild intensity burned through her veins. Varen's controlled precision cut through everything else like a blade. For a moment it was almost beautiful. Then the pain started. It began in her chest, sharp and sudden, like someone had driven a spike through her sternum. Tessa arched off the platform, her scream tearing through the temple. The power inside her recoiled violently, sensing the threat, and fought back with everything it had. Hold her! Varen shouted. Caspian's hands came down on her shoulders, pinning her in place with enough force to bruise. The bond screamed at him to stop, to protect her, but he held firm. Malik grabbed her legs as they started to thrash, his grip like iron. The power surged harder. Tessa felt it trying to escape through every pore, every breath, every heartbeat. Her skin began to glow, faint at first, then brighter, then so bright she could see the bones of her hands through the flesh. The titans held on. Their own power rose to meet hers, trying to contain it, trying to force it into the channels Varin had prepared. But the power didn't want to be contained. It thrashed inside her like a caged animal, clawing at the walls of her body, looking for any weakness it could exploit. Tessa felt something tear inside her chest, something vital, and tasted blood. "It's not working," Malik ground out through clenched teeth. "It's too strong." "Keep going," Varin snapped. "She's burning up." "I said keep going." The glow around Tessa's body intensified. The candles marking the circle began to melt, wax pooling on the stone floor. The air itself started to shimmer with heat waves. Tessa couldn't breathe, couldn't think. There was only pain and fire and the bone-deep certainty that she was being torn apart from the inside out. Her vision started to gray at the edges. "No," she thought desperately. "Stay awake. Have to stay awake or—" The power surged again, harder than before. This time, something inside her actually broke. She felt it snap like a bone, felt the backlash ripple through the bond. Varin cried out. Blood trickled from his nose. His grip on the circle wavered. "Don't you dare let go," Caspian snarled. "I'm trying. Try harder." The silver circle began to crack. Thin lines spider-webbed across its surface, breaking the pattern Varin had so carefully drawn. Then, impossibly, the power went still. Just for a heartbeat. Just long enough for Tessa to feel it listening. She didn't question it, didn't hesitate. With every ounce of will she had left, she grabbed onto that moment of stillness and pulled. Not trying to suppress the power. Not trying to control it. Trying to show it where to go. Through the bond. Into the Titans. Out of her failing body and into their ancient, nearly immortal ones. The power resisted at first, thrashing against the direction she was trying to force it. But Tessa held on, kept pulling, kept pushing it toward the three men who'd become her anchors, her mates, her reason for surviving this long. And slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice at first, the power began to move. It flowed out of her in a rush, flooding through the bond connections like water breaking through a dam. Tessa felt Caspian stagger as it hit him, felt his hands tighten on her shoulders, felt Malik cry out as the foreign magic invaded his body, felt Varin's entire frame go rigid as he absorbed power that wasn't meant for him. But they held, and the power kept flowing. Tessa's vision started to fade. Her heartbeat slowed. The unbearable heat that had consumed her for weeks began to cool as the power drained away, leaving only bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. Just a little more, she thought distantly. Just need to. The temple doors exploded inward. The sound was deafening, stone and iron torn apart like paper. Tessa's head snapped toward the entrance just in time to see the emissary stride through the rubble, wreathed in flames so bright they turned night into day. "How rude," he said, his voice echoing off the ancient walls. "Starting the party without me." Varin's eyes snapped open, wild with panic. "No!" The emissary raised one hand. The flames around him condensed into a spear of pure fire, so hot the air rippled around it. He hurled it with casual precision. Not at the Titans, at the silver circle. The spear struck dead center. The protective barrier shattered instantly, sending up a shower of silver dust and broken magic. The ritual collapsed. The power that had been draining from Tessa reversed direction violently, slamming back into her body with crushing force. She screamed, a raw animal sound that didn't seem human. The backflow was worse than anything that had come before. The power was angry now, furious at being manipulated, and it took its rage out on her flesh. The Titans were thrown backward. Caspian hit the wall hard enough to crack stone. Malik crashed into a pillar and went down in a heap. Varin managed to stay upright, but barely, blood streaming from his nose and ears. Tessa convulsed on the platform, every nerve ending on fire. The glow around her body flared so bright it was blinding. She could feel herself coming apart at the seams, feel her body giving up under the strain. "Stop!" Caspian roared, launching himself at the emissary. The emissary sidestepped with inhuman grace, flames dancing along his fingertips. "I gave you until sunset. You made your choice." He gestured, and the flames coalesced into another spear. This one was larger, hotter, meaner. Caspian tried to intercept but wasn't fast enough. The emissary threw. The spear screamed through the air, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. Time seemed to slow. Tessa saw it coming, saw the death written in flames, saw her end approaching at terminal velocity. Then Malik was there. He threw himself between her and the spear, taking the impact full in the chest. The force drove him backward onto the platform. The flames spread instantly, consuming his shirt, searing his skin, burning so hot Tessa could smell flesh cooking. Malik's scream cut off abruptly as he collapsed beside her, smoke rising from his body. "No!" Tessa tried to reach for him, but her arms wouldn't obey. "No, no, no!" Varen charged the emissary with a roar that shook the temple. His power flared to life, jagged arcs of white lightning that crackled through the air. The emissary met him head-on, flames rising to match the lightning. They collided in an explosion that lit up the entire chamber. Caspian grabbed Tessa off the platform, cradling her against his chest, even as his own power bled from a dozen wounds. "We need to move." "Malik," her voice came out as a broken whisper. "He's alive. Barely. But we can't help him if we're dead." "Can't leave him?" "We're not leaving anyone." Caspian's voice was iron. "But right now, you're the target. We get you safe first." He started toward the far exit, still holding her. Behind them, Varen and the emissary traded blows that cracked stone and melted metal. Soldiers poured through the broken doors, weapons drawn, eyes reflecting firelight. They weren't going to make it. Tessa could feel it in her bones. The way the power inside her was spiraling out of control, the way her body was shutting down from the interrupted ritual, the way the emissary's corrupted magic had twisted something fundamental in Varen's carefully woven spell. She was dying, faster now. Minutes, maybe. Not hours. And there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. "Caspian," she managed through lips that tasted like copper. "Put me down." "Not a chance." "Please." "Tessa, I said put me down." Something in her voice made him stop. He looked down at her, his expression anguished, and slowly lowered her to the ground. Tessa swayed, barely able to stand, but she forced herself upright through sheer stubbornness. Across the temple, Varen was losing. The emissary's flames were relentless, pushing him back step by step toward the wall. His lightning flickered and died. Blood poured from a gash on his forehead. Malik lay motionless on the platform, his chest barely rising. Soldiers surrounded them on all sides, weapons ready, just waiting for the order to attack. And Caspian stood beside her, bleeding from a dozen cuts, his power nearly spent from trying to hold the ritual together. They were going to lose. Unless... Tessa looked down at her hands. They were glowing again, brighter than ever. The power inside her raged like a wildfire out of control, eating through the last shreds of her humanity. The interrupted ritual had made it unstable, volatile, deadly. She'd been trying to suppress it for weeks, trying to control it, trying to channel it safely through the bond and into the Titans. But what if she stopped trying? What if instead of fighting the power, she gave it exactly what it wanted? Let it burn. "Tessa," Caspian's voice was urgent. "What are you thinking?" She met his eyes, saw the fear there, the desperate hope, the love that had somehow survived weeks of distance and pain. "Something stupid," she said. "Don't get them out." "What?" "Malik and Varen, get them out of here. Now." Understanding dawned in his expression, followed immediately by horror. "No, absolutely not. You can't. It's the only way. You'll die." "I'm dying anyway." The words echoed through the temple, bouncing off ancient stone. "At least this way I take him with me. At least this way you three survive." "We don't want to survive without you. You don't get a choice." She touched his face gently, ignoring the way the power sparked between them, burning her fingers. "I need you to trust me. One last time. Can you do that?" Caspian's expression shattered like glass. "I can't lose you." "You won't. Not really." She smiled, fragile and broken. "The bond goes both ways, remember? Part of me will always be with you, all of you, forever." "That's not enough." "It has to be." She pushed past him before he could stop her and walked toward the center of the temple on legs that threatened to give out with every step. The emissary saw her coming and paused his assault on Varen. His smile was sharp as knives. "Finally decided to be reasonable?" he called. "Not exactly," Tessa said. She stopped in the middle of the ruined circle, right where the silver had been before his attack shattered it. The symbols on the floor still pulsed faintly beneath her feet. their ancient magic responding to her presence. Tessa closed her eyes, took one last breath, and then, for the first time since the power had entered her body all those weeks ago, she stopped fighting it completely. She let go. The power exploded outward in a wave of pure, uncontrolled energy that turned the entire temple into a second sun. The force of it drove everyone back, soldiers, titans, even the emissary with all his flames. The stones beneath Tessa's feet cracked and buckled, shattering into fragments. "Get them out!" she screamed to Caspian. "Get them out now!" She couldn't see if he obeyed, couldn't see anything except white light so bright it burned through her closed eyelids. The power consumed her from the inside out, turning flesh and bone into something else entirely, into pure magic, pure energy, pure destruction. It hurt worse than anything she'd ever felt in her life. And somewhere beneath the pain, she felt a wild, terrifying joy. The emissary's flames tried to fight back, tried to contain the explosion. She felt them press against her power like hands trying to hold back a tsunami. Felt them fail. Felt him scream. A sound of genuine shock and fear as her unleashed magic swallowed his carefully controlled fire like it was nothing more than a candle flame. Tessa heard stone cracking, heard the ceiling beginning to collapse, heard Caspian's roar, anguished and furious and already too far away to reach her. The bond between them stretched thin, thinner, like a rope being pulled from both ends. She felt Caspian on the other end, felt him fighting to hold on, felt him pouring everything he had into keeping that connection alive, even as the distance between them grew. "Hold on," she thought at him. "Please. Just hold on a little longer." But the power didn't care about bonds or love or desperate promises. It wanted out. It wanted to burn everything in its path until nothing remained but ash and memory. The last thing Tessa saw before her vision went completely white was the temple ceiling splitting apart, massive stones tumbling down like rain. The last thing she heard was Varen shouting her name, his voice breaking on the syllables. The last thing she felt was the bond snapping like an overstretched thread, the severed ends whipping back and leaving nothing but empty space where her mates had been. And then there was only light and fire and silence. Darkness came first, not the gentle darkness of sleep, the crushing, absolute darkness of being buried alive. Tessa floated in it, weightless and formless, unable to tell if she was breathing or if her heart was still beating or if she even had a body anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the explosion had burned away everything physical and left only this: consciousness without form, awareness without sensation. Maybe this was death, but then pain arrived, sharp and insistent, and she knew she was still alive because the dead didn't hurt like this. Tessa tried to move and couldn't, tried to open her eyes and couldn't, tried to scream and managed only a weak rasp that died in her throat. She was trapped, buried under stone and rubble and her own burned-out magic. Panic clawed at the edges of her mind. Then she felt it. A pull, faint but unmistakable, coming from somewhere outside the darkness. The bond. Still there. Still connected, though it felt different now. Stretched thin, fragile, like spiderweb silk that would snap if she breathed wrong. But it was there, which meant they were alive. The thought gave her enough strength to try again. She focused on the bond, on Caspian's steady presence, Malik's wild energy, Varen's precise control, and pulled. Reached for them through the darkness, felt them reach back. The connection flared. Not bright, not strong, but enough. Enough to anchor her. Enough to remind her that she wasn't alone in the void. Tessa latched onto that feeling and dragged herself toward consciousness, hand over hand, fighting through layers of darkness that tried to pull her back down. When she finally broke through, the first thing she heard was screaming. Her eyes snapped open. She was lying on her back, staring up at a ceiling she didn't recognize. Stone, but different from the temple. Rougher, lower. Some kind of storage room or cellar. Torchlight flickered across the walls, casting dancing shadows. The screaming was coming from somewhere close. A man's voice, raw with agony. Malik. Tessa tried to sit up, and her body refused to cooperate. Everything hurt. Not the burning, consuming pain from before, but a deep, bone-level ache that suggested she'd been broken and hastily put back together. "Don't move." Varen's face appeared above her, haggard and pale. Blood crusted his nose and the corner of his mouth. His hand shook as he pressed her shoulders back down. Malik, Tessa's voice came out as a croak. I know, I'm trying. Varen's expression was anguished. The burns are deep, too deep. I can't. He stopped, jaw clenching. Just stay still. You're barely stable yourself. What happened? You destroyed half the temple, killed the emissary and most of his soldiers. Nearly killed yourself in the process. Varen's hands moved over her torso, checking for injuries with practiced efficiency despite the shaking. Caspian pulled you and Malik out before the ceiling came down completely. We've been here for... He glanced at something out of her line of sight. 3 hours. Maybe 4. Malik screamed again, the sound cutting off abruptly into harsh breathing. Tessa forced herself up onto her elbows despite Varen's protests. They were in a small chamber lit by half a dozen torches. Malik lay on a makeshift pallet across the room, his chest wrapped in bandages that were already soaked through with blood and something darker. Caspian knelt beside him, one massive hand pressed to Malik's shoulder, the other holding a cloth to his forehead. He took the emissary's spear for me, Tessa whispered. I know. He's dying. I know that too. Varen's voice was flat, empty. The flames were corrupted, designed to burn through magical defenses. They're eating him from the inside out, and I don't know how to stop them. Tessa looked at him, really looked, saw the dark circles under his eyes, the way his hands trembled, the defeated slump of his shoulders. Varen had been trying to save people for weeks now, first her, now Malik, and he was failing at both. There has to be something, she said. There isn't. Varen, I've tried everything, his voice cracked. Every healing spell I know, every remedy, every theory I could think of. Nothing works. The corruption is too deep. It's in his blood, his bones, his... He stopped, turning away. He's going to die, and I can't do a damn thing about it. The admission hung in the air like a death sentence. Tessa's chest tightened. The power inside her, the thing that had nearly killed her, that she'd unleashed to save them, stirred, not raging like before. Just aware. Listening. She focused on it, feeling the shape of what remained. The explosion should have burned it all away, should have left her empty, but there was still something there, quieter, smaller, but undeniably present. Help me up, she said. You can't. I said help me up. Varen looked like he wanted to argue. Then he saw her expression and relented, sliding an arm under her shoulders and levering her to her feet. Tessa's legs nearly gave out, but she locked her knees and forced herself to stay upright. What are you doing? Varen asked. Something stupid. Again. She took a step, then another. Each one hurt, but she kept moving, crossing the small chamber until she reached Malik's pallet. Up close, he looked worse. The burns covered most of his chest and part of his neck, the flesh blackened and weeping. His breathing was shallow, labored. His eyes were closed but twitching beneath the lids. Caspian looked up as she approached. His face was a mask of stone, but his eyes were devastated. Don't, he said quietly. Whatever you're thinking, don't. He's dying. I know. I can help. You can barely stand. I don't need to stand. Tessa lowered herself to her knees beside the pallet, ignoring the way her body protested. I need to try. Caspian's jaw clenched. The power almost killed you. It killed the emissary instead. That's not... I still have some of it left. Not much. But maybe enough. She looked down at Malik's ruined chest. The corruption is fire, right? Magical flames burning him from inside. Yes, Varen said from behind her. Then maybe I can burn it out. That's insane. So was unleashing the power in the first place? Worked out okay. You call this okay? Varen gestured at the destroyed chamber, at Malik's broken body. You destroyed everything. You severed the bond. You nearly... The bond isn't severed, Tessa interrupted. Stretched, damaged, but not broken. I can still feel all three of you. Faint, but there. Caspian went very still. You can. Yes. She met his eyes. Can't you? He closed his eyes briefly, concentrating. When he opened them again, something had shifted in his expression. Yes, it's there. Weak, but... He looked at Varen. You feel it too? Varen's hand went to his chest, fingers splaying over his heart. I thought I was imagining it. You're not, Tessa turned back to Malik, which means the ritual didn't completely fail. The power redistributed, at least partially, before the emissary interrupted. That's why I'm still alive. Why it didn't consume me entirely? That doesn't mean you can heal him, Varen said. No, but it means I might be able to fight fire with fire. She placed her hands on Malik's chest, just above the worst of the burns. His skin was hot enough to hurt. The corruption is magical flame. I have magical power. Maybe I can use one to cancel out the other. Or you could make it worse. He's already dying. How much worse can it get? No one had an answer for that. Tessa took a breath and reached for the power inside her. It responded immediately, unfurling like a cat stretching after a nap. Still dangerous, still wild, but noticeably smaller than before. The explosion had burned away most of it, leaving only a fraction. Just enough, she hoped. She pushed the power down through her hands and into Malik's chest. The reaction was immediate and violent. Malik's back arched off the pallet, a scream tearing from his throat. The corrupted flames inside him surged up to meet her power, fighting for dominance. Tessa, stop! Caspian started. No. She gritted her teeth and pushed harder. I can feel it, the corruption. It's like poison, concentrated in his chest. If I can just... The power inside her snarled and dove deeper. Tessa felt the moment it made contact with the corruption. Felt the two magics collide like opposing storm fronts. The corrupted flames tried to spread, tried to consume her power like they'd consumed Malik's flesh. But her power was born from something older, wilder. It didn't just burn, it devoured. She felt it eating through the corruption, breaking it down, turning it into nothing more than ash and memory. Malik screamed again, but this time there was something different in the sound. Not just pain. Relief. It's working, Varen breathed. Tessa didn't answer, couldn't answer. All her focus was on the battle happening beneath her hands. Push. Pull. Burn away the corruption without burning Malik himself. It was like trying to perform surgery with a blowtorch, precise destruction in a body that couldn't afford any more damage. Sweat poured down her face. Her vision started to gray at the edges. She was running out of strength, running out of power, running out of... The corruption broke. One moment it was fighting back, the next it simply dissolved, crumbled under the assault and scattered like embers in wind. Tessa felt the last of it burn away and yanked her power back before it could do more damage. She slumped forward, catching herself on Malik's shoulders, breathing hard. Is he... she started. Malik's eyes opened. They were unfocused at first, pupils blown wide with pain and shock. Then they found her face, and something like recognition flickered through them. You're alive, he rasped. So are you. Feels like I died. You almost did. Tessa's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold herself up. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a mountain made of fire. He tried to smile and winced. But I'll live? You'll live, Varen confirmed, moving to examine the burns. His hands were steadier now, more confident. The corruption is gone. The wounds will take time to heal, but they're just wounds now. Normal ones. Survivable ones. Malik's gaze stayed locked on Tessa. You saved me. You saved me first. I threw myself in front of a spear. You walked into an explosion. Semantics. Something that might have been a laugh caught in Malik's throat. Then his expression shifted, turned serious. The bond. I can feel it again. Can you? Tessa nodded. It's different, thinner, but it's there. The ritual worked, Varen said quietly. Not the way we planned, not cleanly, but it worked. The power redistributed before the interruption. That's why Tessa survived the explosion, why the bond didn't sever completely. So what now? Malik asked. Now you rest, Caspian said, his voice rough. And heal. And we figure out what's left. What's left of what? Everything. Caspian looked around the small chamber. The temple is destroyed. Half the citadel is damaged. The Summer King's emissary is dead along with most of his soldiers, but that doesn't mean the Summer Court won't retaliate. We're vulnerable, weakened, and... He stopped, jaw working, and we almost lost you, both of you. The weight of it settled over them like a shroud. They'd survived, but barely. And the cost had been steep. Tessa felt exhaustion pulling at her, dragging her down toward unconsciousness. She tried to fight it, but her body had other ideas. The last thing she remembered was Caspian catching her as she fell, his arms solid and warm around her. Then darkness again. But this time, the bond hummed beneath it all, quiet and steady and real. This time, she wasn't alone. She woke to sunlight, real sunlight, streaming through a window she didn't recognize. Tessa blinked against it, disoriented, trying to piece together where she was. A bedroom, small but well-appointed, clean sheets that smelled like lavender, stone walls covered with tapestries. Definitely not the cellar. She sat up slowly, testing her body. Everything ached, but it was manageable. The burning, consuming pain was gone. In its place was just regular pain, the kind that came from being injured and surviving. She'd take it. The door opened and a young woman entered carrying a tray. She froze when she saw Tessa awake. "Your Majesty," she said, dropping into a hasty curtsy that nearly upset the tray. "I'll fetch the healers." "Wait!" Tessa's voice came out stronger than expected. "Where am I?" "The East Wing, Your Majesty. Lord Caspian had you moved here yesterday after you stabilized." "Yesterday? How long have I been asleep?" "2 days, Your Majesty." 2 days. Tessa's stomach dropped. "And the others? Malik? Varen? Caspian?" "Lord Malik is recovering. Lord Varen is in his laboratory. Lord Caspian is—" She hesitated. "Dealing with the council." Something in her tone made Tessa tense. "What happened?" "I'm not sure I should—" "Tell me." The woman shifted uncomfortably. "There's been unrest since the temple. Some of the council members are saying the explosion was too dangerous, that you're too dangerous. They're calling for—" She stopped. "For what?" "For the bond to be broken. Officially. Before anyone else gets hurt." The words hit like a physical blow. Tessa threw off the covers and stood, ignoring the way her legs trembled. "Where's the council meeting?" "Your Majesty, you should rest." "Where?" "The throne room, but you can't—" Tessa was already moving. She grabbed a robe from a hook near the door and wrapped it around herself as she walked. Her bare feet slapped against cold stone. She probably looked like death, but she didn't care. If they thought she was going to lie in bed while they debated severing her bond, they were about to learn otherwise. The walk to the throne room felt endless. Servants pressed themselves against walls as she passed, their eyes wide. Guards stationed at corners looked uncertain whether to stop her or salute. She ignored them all. The throne room doors were closed when she reached them. Voices leaked through, raised and angry. Tessa didn't bother knocking. She shoved the doors open hard enough to make them bang against the walls and strode inside. The conversation cut off abruptly. Caspian stood at the center of the dais, flanked by empty thrones. Below him the council sat in their semicircle, Eris with his sharp features, Marin with her blade smile, Thorn looking uncomfortable. A dozen others Tessa didn't know well. They all turned to stare at her. "Your Majesty," Eris said after a beat, "we weren't expecting you. Clearly—" Tessa walked down the center aisle, her chin high despite the way her heart hammered. "What's this I hear about breaking the bond?" Silence. "Well?" She reached the dais and climbed the steps, positioning herself beside Caspian. "Someone want to explain?" Marin cleared her throat delicately. "Your Majesty, we're simply concerned for the safety of the Citadel. The explosion—" "Saved all of you," Tessa interrupted. "The emissary was here to take me to the Summer King. He would have killed anyone who tried to stop him. Instead, I stopped him, permanently." "At great cost," Eris said. "The temple is destroyed. Half the lower citadel is damaged, and you nearly died in the process." "But I didn't. This time." His gaze was sharp. "What about next time? What happens when another enemy comes? When the power inside you destabilizes again? How many more explosions can the citadel survive?" "The power is stable now," Caspian said, his voice hard. "The ritual worked. Tessa is no longer in danger." "With respect, my lord, we don't know that. We've seen no proof." "The proof is standing in front of you." Varen's voice came from the doorway. He walked in looking exhausted but determined, Malik leaning on his shoulder. Malik's chest was wrapped in fresh bandages and he moved stiffly, but he was upright. The bond has stabilized. The power has redistributed. Tessa is not a threat to this citadel. She destroyed half of it, saving it from an invading force, Varen cut in. Or did you all forget about the 50 soldiers at our gates? About the emissary who could have killed every person in this room without breaking a sweat? Murmurs rippled through the council. The Summer King sent his emissary to test us, Caspian continued, to see if we were weak enough to conquer. Tessa proved we're not. She proved the bond makes us stronger, not weaker. At what cost? Marin pressed. How many people have to die proving it? The only people who died were our enemies, Malik said. His voice was rough but steady. And they died because our queen had the courage to do what needed to be done, something none of you were willing to do. The accusation landed hard. Eris stood, his face flushed. We are not soldiers. We are advisors. It is not our job to— Then stop trying to advise us on matters of war, Caspian said coldly. The Summer King declared his intentions when he sent that emissary. This is only the beginning. If you think breaking the bond will make us safer, you're fools. But keeping it could destroy us, Eris shot back. Look at what happened when it destabilized. The ritual nearly killed all 4 of you. The explosion could have brought down the entire citadel, and you want us to trust that it won't happen again? Yes, Tessa said quietly. The single word cut through the argument like a blade. She stepped forward, drawing all eyes to her. I know you're scared. I know what I did was dangerous. But I'm still here, still standing, still bonded to 3 titans who would burn the world down before they let anything happen to me. And I would do the same for them. That's exactly what we're afraid of, Marin said softly. Good. Tessa met her gaze. You should be afraid. Not of me. Of what happens if you try to tear us apart, because I won't survive it, and neither will they. The bond isn't something you can just sever like cutting a rope. It's woven into everything we are. Breaking it would kill us all. You don't know that. I do. She touched her chest right over her heart. I felt it stretching when the explosion hit, felt it trying to snap. It would have if Caspian hadn't held on. If all 3 of them hadn't fought to keep it intact, even while I was burning everything around us to ash. She looked around the room, meeting each council member's eyes in turn. You want proof the bond makes us stronger? Fine. Here it is. 2 days ago, I was dying. The power inside me was consuming me from the inside out. You all saw it. Watched me collapse. Watched me burn. And now? She held out her hands. They were steady. Whole. Now I'm healed. The power is distributed, stable, because of the bond. Because of them. Varen moved forward, pulling a small notebook from his pocket. I've been documenting the changes. The power readings are consistent now, balanced between all 4 of us instead of concentrated in Tessa alone. The bond acts as a regulator, preventing any single person from being overwhelmed. But the explosion, someone started, was controlled, Varen interrupted, or as controlled as it could be under the circumstances. Tessa directed the blast outward, away from where we were sheltering. She protected us even while unleashing enough power to level the temple. That takes incredible control. Or incredible luck, Eris muttered. It wasn't luck. Malik straightened despite the obvious pain it caused. I was there. I felt it through the bond. Tessa knew exactly what she was doing. She sacrificed herself to save us. And she succeeded. Barely. Success is success. Caspian's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. The emissary is dead. His soldiers are dead or fled. The Summer King now knows we're not easy prey, and we have Tessa to thank for that. He turned to face the council fully, his expression hard as stone. So here's what's going to happen. The bond stays. Tessa stays. And anyone who has a problem with that can leave. Now. Because I'm done entertaining this conversation. Silence crashed through the throne room. Then Commander Thorne stood. For a moment, Tessa's heart lurched, thinking he was leaving. Instead, he placed a fist over his heart and bowed. I stand with the Queen, he said. One by one, the guards stationed around the room followed suit. Fists to hearts, heads bowed. Eris looked around, his expression caught between anger and shock. This is madness. No, Tessa said. This is loyalty, something you might want to consider. His face went red, but he sat down without another word. Marin stood more slowly, her expression unreadable. If the bond destabilizes again, it won't, Varen said firmly. But if it does? Then we handle it, Caspian said. Together, as we should have from the beginning. Marin studied them for a long moment. Then she inclined her head. Very well. I will trust your judgment, for now. It wasn't enthusiastic support, but it was enough. The rest of the council followed her lead, sitting back down and murmuring their acceptance. Eris held out longest, his jaw clenched, but eventually even he nodded. Tessa felt something in her chest loosen. Caspian stepped closer, his hand finding hers. The touch was careful, controlled, but present. Real. The bond between them hummed with warmth. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Getting there. You should be resting. I will, after this. She squeezed his hand. We needed to face them together. We did. He looked down at their joined hands, wonder flickering across his face. It doesn't hurt. No, it doesn't. Malik moved to her other side, slower but steady. When he took her other hand, the bond flared brighter. Still careful, still gentle, but growing stronger. Varen completed the circle, his hand warm on her shoulder. For the first time in weeks, Tessa felt the bond settle into place properly. Not straining, not fighting, just there. A quiet presence connecting all four of them. The council is dismissed, Caspian announced without looking away from her. They filed out slowly, some still muttering, but they left. When the throne room was finally empty except for the four of them and the guards, Tessa let herself sag slightly. Immediately, 3 pairs of hands steadied her. Easy, Malik murmured. I'm fine. You're exhausted, Varen corrected, and you just stood through a council meeting 2 days after nearly dying. You're allowed to not be fine. Tessa laughed, a weak, shaky sound. Fair point. Caspian scooped her up before she could protest, cradling her against his chest. The bond sang with contentment at the contact. What are you doing? She asked. Taking you back to bed, where you should have stayed. I couldn't let them. I know. His voice was soft. And I'm grateful you didn't, but now you rest. Actually rest. While we figure out what comes next. What does this come next? The 3 titans exchanged glances. Recovery, Varen said finally. Rebuilding. Strengthening our defenses before the Summer King tries again. You think he will? I know he will. We humiliated him, killed his emissary. That demands a response. But not today, Caspian said. Today, we rest. Tomorrow, we plan. Agreed? Tessa nodded against his chest, too tired to argue. As Caspian carried her back through the citadel, Malik and Varen flanking them, Tessa felt the bond pulse with something that felt almost like peace. They'd survived. The power was stable. The bond was intact. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, she could touch her mates without screaming. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was. The citadel was damaged. Enemies still waited beyond the walls. The council's support was fragile at best. But they were alive. Together. And that was enough. For 3 days, nothing happened. Tessa recovered in the east wing while the citadel held its breath. Healers came and went, checking her vitals, murmuring their approval at her progress. Servants brought food she barely touched, and the 3 titans took turns sitting with her, never leaving her alone for more than a few minutes. The bond between them grew stronger each day, steadier. What had been a fragile thread stretched to breaking was becoming something solid again. She could feel them even when they weren't in the room. Caspian's steady presence like bedrock, Malik's restless energy, Varen's focused intensity. It should have been comforting. Instead, it made her restless. On the 4th day, Tessa woke before dawn and decided she was done being an invalid. She dressed herself, slowly, carefully, but without help, and made her way to the gardens. The damage from the explosion was visible even here. Vines that had grown wild during her illness were now withered and brown. Flowers that had bloomed in violent excess lay scattered across the paths like discarded petals. The whole place looked like it was mourning. Tessa understood the feeling. She found a stone bench near the center and sat, watching the sky lighten from black to gray to gold. The air was cold enough to make her breath fog, but she welcomed it. Anything was better than the suffocating warmth of her chambers. "You're up early." Tessa didn't turn. She'd felt Malik approaching through the bond before he spoke. "Couldn't sleep." "Same." He sat beside her, moving stiffly. The burns were healing, but still painful. "Mind company?" "Depends." "Are you going to tell me to go back to bed?" "Would it work if I did?" "Not even slightly." Malik smiled. "Then no. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy the quiet." They sat in silence as the sun crept over the walls. Birds began to sing in the damaged gardens. Somewhere in the distance, guards called the watch change. The normalcy of it felt strange after weeks of chaos. "Do you regret it?" Tessa asked finally. "Regret what?" "Taking that spear, almost dying, all of it." Malik was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "No. Do you?" "I don't know." Tessa pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. "I saved everyone, stopped the emissary, proved the bond could work. But I also destroyed half the citadel and nearly killed myself in the process, so I'm not sure if I'm a hero or just lucky." "You're both, and neither." Malik leaned back, his eyes on the sky. "You did what you had to do, what none of the rest of us were willing to risk. That's not heroism, it's just survival." "Doesn't feel like survival." "It never does. Not at first." He glanced at her. "Give it time. Eventually the fear fades, and all that's left is the knowledge that you're still here, still breathing, still fighting." Tessa rested her chin on her knees. "What if the Summer King comes back? What if we have to do it all over again? Then we do it together. No more martyrdom, no more sacrifices. We fight as a unit, or we don't fight at all." "You can't promise that." "I can try." Malik's expression was serious. "And I can make sure the others understand it too. We're stronger together. The explosion proved that. Your power alone would have killed you, but distributed through all four of us, it became manageable, controllable. That's what we need to remember." The simple honesty of it made her throat tight. They sat together until the sun was fully risen and the citadel began to wake around them. Servants appeared on the paths carrying baskets and tools. Guards changed positions on the walls. Life continued, stubborn and persistent, despite everything that had tried to snuff it out. Then Malik stood with a wince and offered his hand. "Come on! Varen will have my head if he finds out I let you sit in the cold this long." Tessa took his hand and let him pull her up. The bond hummed warmly between them. No pain, no burning, just connection. She still wasn't entirely used to it, this ability to touch her mates without screaming, but she was learning to trust it. They made it halfway back to the east wing before the horns sounded. 3 sharp blasts that echoed across the citadel like a scream. Tessa's blood ran cold. She knew that signal. Everyone did. Enemy at the gates. Malik cursed and started running despite the obvious pain it caused. Tessa ran after him, her heart hammering against her ribs. They reached the main courtyard to find it already filling with soldiers. Caspian stood at the center, barking orders, his expression grim. Varen was racing down from the upper levels, his face pale. "What's happening?" Tessa called. Caspian turned. For a moment she thought he'd tell her to go hide, to retreat to safety while the men handled things. Instead he said, "The Summer King himself is here, with an army." The words hit like stones. "How many?" Malik asked, breathing hard. "Scouts say 500, maybe more. They're arrayed across the plains just outside arrow range." "That's not an advance force," Varen said, arriving at Caspian's side. "That's a siege army." "Or a statement." Caspian's jaw clenched. "They're not attacking, just waiting." "For what?" "For us to surrender, probably." He looked at Tessa, and she saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or resignation. "Or for us to hand you over." Tessa's stomach dropped. "Me?" "The emissary was the Summer King's favorite, his right hand. You killed him. This is personal now. So what do we do?" "We hear what he has to say." Caspian gestured to the guards. "Open the gates. Limited access. I want archers on every wall and—" "No," Tessa interrupted. Everyone turned to stare at her. "No?" Caspian repeated, his voice carefully neutral. "Don't open the gates. Don't give him the satisfaction." Tessa stepped forward, her mind racing. The fear was there, sharp and cold in her gut, but beneath it was something else. Determination. Let me go out there. Absolutely not, all three Titans said in unison. He wants me, right? He's here because I killed his emissary, so let me face him. That's suicide, Varen said flatly. Not if you come with me. Tessa, listen. She looked between them, willing them to understand. The Summer King brought an army to our doorstep. He's making a show of force, trying to intimidate us. If we cower behind walls, he wins. But if we meet him head on, as equals, we show him we're not afraid. We should be afraid, Malik muttered. 500 soldiers. Who haven't attacked? Who are just standing there? Why? Tessa's pulse was racing, but her voice stayed steady. Because he wants to negotiate, or threaten, or make some kind of deal. Otherwise, he'd have already started burning. Caspian's expression was unreadable. You're betting our lives on that assumption. I'm betting our lives on the bond. Tessa touched her chest, feeling the warmth of the connection pulsing beneath her ribs. The power is stable now, distributed between all four of us. If he attacks, we attack back, together, as one. That's incredibly reckless. So was unleashing the power in the temple worked out okay? You call nearly dying okay? I call surviving okay. Tessa met his eyes, refusing to back down. We can't hide forever, Caspian. Eventually we have to show them what we've become, what the bond has made us, and I'd rather do it on our terms than his. Silence fell over the courtyard. Guards shifted nervously. Soldiers exchanged glances. The whole citadel seemed to be holding its breath. Varen was the first to break it. She's right. Caspian turned on him. What? She's right. We've been reactive this whole time, responding to threats instead of confronting them. The Summer King is here because he thinks we're weak, fractured. If we prove him wrong, if we show him the bond makes us stronger, not weaker, he might actually back down. Or he might kill us all, Malik said. Maybe, but I'd rather die fighting than starve out a siege. Varen's voice was hard, and I'm tired of being afraid, tired of treating Tessa like she's fragile when she's proven again and again that she's the strongest one here. Tessa felt something warm bloom in her chest at the words. Caspian looked between them, his expression caught between anger and reluctant agreement. She could feel the war happening inside him through the bond, the instinct to protect warring with the knowledge that she was right. Finally, he cursed under his breath and turned to the guards. Get me a parley flag, and tell the archers to stay ready. If this goes wrong, it won't, Tessa said with more confidence than she felt. You don't know that. No, but I believe it anyway. Something in Caspian's expression softened. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish. Probably both. Despite everything, he almost smiled. They assembled quickly, Caspian, Malik, Varen, and Tessa, walking toward the gates in a tight formation. The bond between them hummed with nervous energy, but held steady. Tessa could feel each of them through the connection, Caspian's controlled determination, Malik's barely restrained violence, Varen's analytical focus. It was like walking surrounded by three forces of nature, all pointed in the same direction. Soldiers lined the walls, weapons ready, but not drawn. The parley flag, white silk marked with the Titan's crest, snapped in the wind above them. The gates opened with a groan of metal and stone. Beyond them, the army waited. It was larger than Tessa had imagined. Soldiers in gleaming gold armor stretched across the plains like a field of wheat. Banners marked with the Summer King's sigil, a burning sun, flew at intervals. War machines sat silent but ready at the edges. And at the center, mounted on a horse that seemed to be made of living flame, sat the king himself. He was beautiful in the way wildfire was beautiful, dangerous, mesmerizing, deadly, tall and lean with golden skin that seemed to glow from within. His hair was the color of sunset, his eyes like molten amber. He wore armor that looked like it had been forged from sunlight itself, and flames danced along the edges without consuming the metal. When he saw them approaching, he smiled. "The Titans and their pet human," he called, his voice carrying easily across the distance. "How quaint." "We're here to negotiate," Caspian said, his voice like granite. "Not trade insults. Are we?" The Summer King dismounted with fluid grace, his feet hitting the ground without a sound. I wasn't aware there was anything to negotiate. You killed my emissary. The penalty for that is death. Your emissary attacked first. He was defending himself from your queen's tantrum. The Summer King's smile widened. Poor creature couldn't control her own power. Had to unleash it like a child throwing a fit. Destroyed half her own home in the process. And you expect me to believe she's worthy of respect? That's a lie, Tessa said before she could stop herself. The Summer King's gaze snapped to her. His eyes were predatory, amused. Ah, the human speaks. How delightful. She's our queen, Varen said coldly, and our mate. You'll address her with respect. Respect? The king laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. For a creature who nearly burned herself out of existence, who destroyed half her own citadel in a fit of uncontrolled power. Why would I respect that? Because I'm still standing, Tessa said. The laughter died. She stepped forward, moving ahead of the Titans despite their protests through the bond. She could feel their alarm, their desire to pull her back. But she pushed past it. This was her fight, her mistake to correct, her enemy to face. The Summer King watched her approach, his expression shifting to something more curious, calculating. You're either very brave or very stupid, he said. I've been told that before. And yet you continue to walk toward your death. Fascinating. He tilted his head. Tell me, little queen, do you actually believe you can stand against me? Against 500 soldiers trained in fire magic since birth? I believe I already did. Tessa stopped just out of arm's reach, close enough to see the flames dancing in his pupils. I believe I killed your favorite emissary without even trying. I believe you're here because you're scared of what I might become. The Summer King's expression went cold. I fear nothing. Then why bring an army? Why not just walk in and take me yourself if you're so confident? Silence. Tessa pressed the advantage. You're here to intimidate us, to make us afraid. But it's not working, because I've already faced the worst thing I could imagine, dying slowly while the people I love couldn't even touch me. I've already burned from the inside out and survived. So whatever you think you can do to me, I've done worse to myself. The Summer King stared at her. For the first time, genuine surprise flickered across his face. Bold words, he said finally. True words. Tessa straightened her spine. I'm not here to die. I'm here to tell you that if you attack this citadel, you won't survive it. You can't possibly believe you'd win. I have 500 soldiers, and we have this. Tessa reached for the bond and pulled. The response was immediate. Power flooded through the connection, from Caspian, from Malik, from Varen, all of it converging on her like rivers joining into a single current. She didn't try to control it, didn't try to shape it, just let it flow through her and out, creating a visible shimmer in the air around them. The temperature dropped, then spiked. The ground beneath her feet cracked, and the air itself seemed to bend around the four of them, warping like heat waves. The Summer King's soldiers shifted nervously. Some actually stepped back. A few of the horses screamed and tried to bolt. This is what you're fighting, Tessa said quietly, letting the power pulse once more before drawing it back. Not 4 individuals, one force, unified, unstoppable. Your emissary learned that the hard way. Do you want to be next? She let the power fade slowly, drawing it back but keeping the connection open. The bond sang between them, strong and clear. Through it, she felt Caspian's fierce pride, Malik's wild approval, Varen's analytical satisfaction. The Summer King stared at her for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. Then he threw his head back and laughed. Oh, this is rich, he said when he finally caught his breath. You figured out how to share power. Congratulations, it's still not enough. Then prove it. Tessa's voice was steady. Attack us. See what happens. The challenge hung in the air like smoke. The Summer King's smile faded. He studied her with eyes that burned like coals, looking for weakness, for fear, for any crack in her armor. Tessa stared back and refused to blink. You're bluffing, he said finally. Am I? You have to be. No human could channel that much power without burning out. I've seen it tried. They always break. I'm not just human anymore. Tessa touched her chest, right over her heart. The bond changed me. Changed all of us. Or something new now, something you've never faced before, something that doesn't break. That's not possible. Neither was breaking a 1,000-year curse. Neither was surviving an explosion that should have killed me. Neither was healing corruption that should have eaten Malik alive from the inside out. Tessa took another step forward, closing the distance between them to barely an arm's length. You came here expecting to find us weak, broken, easy prey. But we're not. We're stronger than ever, and we're not afraid of you. The Summer King's expression went dangerous. You should be. Why? Because you have numbers? Because your magic burns hot? Tessa shook her head. You lost your emissary because he underestimated me. He thought I was just a dying human clinging to power I couldn't control. He was wrong. Don't make the same mistake. For a moment, she thought he might actually attack. Saw his hand move toward the weapon at his belt. Saw flames begin to dance along his fingers, brighter and hotter than before. Then Caspian was there, moving to stand beside her with the fluid grace of something ancient and deadly, followed by Malik, his posture aggressive despite the still healing burns. Then Varen, his eyes cold and calculating. The four of them in a line, united, unbreakable. The bond flared bright enough that even the Summer King soldiers could probably feel it, a pulse of raw power that made the air taste like lightning and copper. You want her? Caspian's voice was granite and ice. You go through us first, all of us, at once. And you won't survive it, Malik added, his smile sharp as broken glass. We've already proven what we can do when pushed, Varen said. Test us again and you'll get the same result. Or worse. The Summer King looked at them, really looked. Saw the way they stood together, the way the power flowed between them like water finding its level, the absolute certainty in their stance. Saw four beings who'd been broken separately and forged together into something stronger than the sum of their parts. And for the first time, doubt flickered across his face. This isn't over, he said finally, his voice tight. It is for today, Tessa replied. The Summer King held her gaze for another long moment. She could see him weighing options, calculating odds, trying to decide if his pride was worth the potential cost. Then he turned and mounted his horse in one smooth motion, flames trailing from his armor. Withdraw, he called to his army. My king! One of his generals started, spurring forward. I said withdraw. His voice cracked like a whip, leaving no room for argument. The army began to move. Slowly at first, uncertain, then faster as the order filtered through the ranks. They pulled back across the plains like a retreating tide, armor glinting in the morning sun. Within minutes, they were nothing but dust on the horizon. The Summer King remained a moment longer, his flame horse pawing the ground. You've made an enemy today, little queen, he said. You made one first when you sent your emissary to threaten me and my mates. He smiled, sharp and cold as winter ice. Fair point. Until next time, then. There won't be a next time. Won't there? His smile widened. You've won a battle. Congratulations. But the war? That's just beginning. And next time I'll come prepared. He wheeled his horse and rode after his army, flames trailing in his wake like a comet's tail. Tessa watched him go, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack a rib. Her hands were shaking. Her legs felt like water. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was draining away, leaving only exhaustion in its wake. When he was finally out of sight, her legs gave out. Caspian caught her before she hit the ground, sweeping her up against his chest. Easy, he murmured. I've got you. Did that actually work? Tessa's voice shook. Did he really just leave? It worked, Varen said, sounding stunned. He backed down. Because you scared him, Malik added, something like awe in his voice. You looked him in the eye and called his bluff, and he blinked first. I wasn't sure he was bluffing. Neither was I, Caspian admitted, but it doesn't matter now. He's gone, and he knows we're not easy prey, that we'll fight back with everything we have. Tessa let herself sag against him, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. Can we go inside now, before I pass out? Already on it. He carried her back through the gates to cheering. The soldiers on the walls were shouting, banging weapons against shields in celebration. The courtyard erupted in sound as people realized what had just happened. that the Summer King himself had retreated without a single arrow fired. Tessa barely registered any of it. She was too busy focusing on the bond, on the way it had held steady through the entire confrontation, on the way the power had answered when she called without trying to consume her or burn her alive. They'd done it, actually done it, proven the bond worked, proven they were stronger together, proven she wasn't a liability but an asset, a weapon, a queen. Caspian carried her all the way to the throne room, his steps sure and steady. He set her down gently on one of the massive thrones, his throne, the one carved from black stone, and knelt in front of her so they were eye level. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I will be." Tessa touched his face, marveling at the fact that she could without pain, without fear. "We all will be." Malik and Varen joined them, completing the circle. For a moment they just stood there, connected through the bond, feeling the aftermath of adrenaline and fear and triumph washing through them in waves. "That was insane," Malik said finally. "Completely," Varen agreed. "But effective," Tessa added. Caspian laughed, a real laugh, surprised and relieved and maybe a little bit broken. "You're going to give me gray hair. You're immortal. You'll recover." "I'm not so sure about that anymore." Tessa smiled and pulled all three of them closer, letting the bond wrap around them like a blanket. Physical touch, emotional connection, and magical power all woven together into something that felt like home. "We did it. We actually did it." "We did," Caspian agreed. "Because of you. Because of all of us." "No." His expression was serious now, his eyes holding hers. "Because you had the courage to stand up when everyone else wanted to hide. You saved us, Tessa. Again. You saved me first. All of you. When I was burning out. When I couldn't control the power, you held on to the bond even when it hurt. Even when it would have been easier to let go." "We couldn't let go," Malik said quietly. "Not of you. Never of you." "We tried," Varen added with a wry smile. "Didn't work. You're stuck with us now." The bond pulsed with warmth and certainty and something that felt dangerously close to joy. Tessa felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you, all three of you, even when you drive me crazy, even when you're overprotective and stubborn and impossible." "The feeling is mutual," Caspian said. "Absolutely," Malik agreed. "Without question," Varen finished. They stayed like that as the citadel celebrated around them, wrapped in each other and the bond that had nearly destroyed them, but ultimately made them whole. The future was uncertain. The Summer King would return. Other enemies would come, but for now, in this moment, they were together, alive, victorious. And that was enough. The days that followed were a blur of reconstruction and reestablishment. The temple was cleared, the rubble sorted, the foundation examined for what could be salvaged. Varen declared it structurally sound enough to rebuild, and work began immediately. The gardens were replanted with his careful supervision, this time with normal growth patterns instead of the violent explosion of life from before. The council met daily to plan defenses and prepare for the Summer King's inevitable return. But this time, Tessa was part of it all. Not as a fragile queen who needed protecting, not as a problem to be managed, as an equal, a partner, someone whose opinion mattered and whose power was respected rather than feared. It was strange at first, overwhelming. She'd gone from being dying and isolated to being central and necessary in a matter of days. But the Titans helped her navigate it, showed her how to wield authority without wielding tyranny, how to listen without being weak, how to lead without losing herself. And the bond made it easier. She could feel their confidence in her through the connection, could draw on their strength when she needed it, could offer her own in return. It flowed both ways now, natural as breathing. They were learning to be a unit, a real one, not just four people bound by magic, but four people choosing each other every day, in every decision, in every moment. Commander Thorne became an unexpected ally, offering tactical advice and smoothing things over with the more traditional soldiers who still weren't sure what to make of their human queen. Lady Marin proved surprisingly pragmatic, throwing her support behind Tessa once it became clear the bond wasn't going to break. Even Lord Eris grudgingly acknowledged that Tessa had proven herself, though he still looked at her like she was a wild animal that might bite. Tessa found she didn't care. She'd stopped trying to convince people who didn't want to be convinced, stopped worrying about what the council thought of every decision. She had 3 mates who believed in her absolutely, and that was enough. 3 weeks after the Summer King's retreat, Tessa stood in the rebuilt gardens and watched the sun set over the citadel walls. Spring had fully arrived now, real spring, not the violent explosion of growth from before. The flowers bloomed naturally, the vines climbed without strangling, birds nested in the trees. Everything was balanced, like the bond. "You're thinking too loud." Tessa turned to find Caspian approaching, a small smile on his face. He'd relaxed over the past weeks, the constant tension in his shoulders finally easing. "Sorry, just processing." "Still?" "There's a lot to process." She gestured at the gardens, the citadel, everything. "A month ago I was dying, burning from the inside out, unable to touch any of you without screaming. Now I'm helping plan military defenses and sitting in council meetings and—" She stopped. "It's a lot." "It is." Caspian stopped beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "But you're handling it well." "I'm faking it well." "Same thing when you're a queen." Tessa laughed. "Is it?" "Absolutely." He paused, his expression turning more serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you regret it? Any of it? Breaking the curse, binding yourself to us, nearly dying repeatedly, becoming something you never planned to be?" Tessa considered the question seriously, turning it over in her mind. A month ago, she would have said yes without hesitation, would have given anything to go back to being normal, human, safe, alone. Now? "No," she said. "I don't regret it." "Even though it nearly killed you?" "Even then." She looked up at him, meeting his eyes. "Because it also gave me you, all 3 of you, and the power to stand against people who would have destroyed us. And a purpose bigger than just surviving day to day." Caspian's expression softened in a way that made her chest ache. "You're remarkable." "I'm stubborn." "That too. It's one of your best qualities." He reached for her hand slowly, still careful despite weeks of successful contact. When she didn't pull away, his fingers laced with hers. The bond hummed with warmth but no pain. Just connection, just rightness, just them. They stood together as the sun bled red across the horizon, painting the citadel in shades of amber and gold. Somewhere in the gardens, she could hear Malik laughing at something Varen said, could feel them both through the bond, warm and alive and real. "What happens next?" Tessa asked. "We prepare. Train. Strengthen the bond even more. The Summer King will come back eventually. When he does, we'll be ready. And until then? Until then, we live." Caspian squeezed her hand. "We rebuild. We grow. We figure out what it means to be what we've become." "And what's that?" He smiled. "Something new. Something the world has never seen before. 4 beings bound by choice and power and love, stronger together than any of us could be alone." "That sounds terrifying." "It should. We're terrifying." His smile widened. "But we're also unbreakable, and that's what matters." Tessa laughed and leaned into him, letting his solid warmth anchor her. "I can live with that." Malik and Varen found them as full dark fell, drawn by the bond or instinct or both. They gathered in the garden, 4 people who shouldn't have survived, shouldn't have bonded, shouldn't have worked, and watched the stars come out one by one. "I have something for you," Varen said suddenly. He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it with careful fingers. Inside lay 4 rings, simple bands of twisted metal that seemed to shimmer in the starlight, catching and reflecting the moon like captured water. "What are these?" Tessa asked, her breath catching. "Bond rings. I've been working on them for weeks." Varen's expression was almost shy, which was strange on him. "They're keyed to our bond. If one of us is in danger, the others will know, feel it, no matter how far apart we are or what's happening." "You made these?" Malik sounded awed. "I had a lot of time while you were all recovering, and I needed something tangible, something real." Varen pulled out one of the rings and held it up to the light. "They're not necessary. The bond works fine without them. But I thought, a symbol, something we could see and touch, something that proves this is real." Tessa took the ring he offered. It was warm to the touch, humming faintly with contained magic. She could feel the spell woven through it, complex and elegant, designed to strengthen what they already had rather than create something new. She slipped it onto her finger and felt the bond flare in response, stronger and clearer than ever. It was like someone had turned up the volume on a song she'd been straining to hear. One by one, the others put on their rings, Caspian's on his right hand, Malik's on his left, Varen on his right, matching Caspian. The bond between them brightened, solidified, became something they could almost see shimmering in the air like heat waves. "Perfect fit," Malik said, examining his ring with something like wonder. "I'm good at what I do," Varen replied, but there was warmth in his voice. Caspian studied his own ring, then looked at Tessa. The expression on his face was soft, vulnerable. "What do you think?" "I think it's perfect." She held up her hand, watching the ring catch the starlight. "All of this. You, us. It's perfect." "Nothing's perfect," Malik corrected gently. "We're all broken in different ways." "No, but it's ours. And that's enough." Tessa looked at each of them in turn. More than enough. They stood together as night deepened around them, bound by magic and choice and something stronger than either. The citadel rose behind them, damaged but standing. The world waited beyond the walls, full of threats and challenges and enemies who would test them again and again. But for now, in this moment, they were whole. 4 broken pieces that had somehow fit together into something unbreakable. A queen who'd been dying and chose to burn instead. 3 titans who'd been isolated for centuries and chose to risk everything for love. And a bond that had nearly destroyed them all, but ultimately saved them. Tessa looked at her mates, at Caspian's steady strength, Malik's fierce passion, Varen's careful devotion, and felt something settle in her chest. Not the power, not the magic, just certainty. This was where she belonged. Not as a sacrifice, not as a solution, not as a problem to be managed, but as herself, flawed and fierce, and finally, completely free. "So what now?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. "Now," Caspian said, pulling her close with one arm while the other 2 moved in. "We see what happens when the world realizes we're not afraid anymore. They won't like it." "Good." Malik grinned, wild and unrepentant. "Let them try to stop us." "They'll fail," Varen added with quiet confidence. "Because we're stronger than they think," Tessa finished. "No." Caspian's voice was soft but absolute. "Because we're stronger than we thought, and we're just getting started." The bond flared bright between them, 4 lights becoming one force becoming infinite. Above the citadel, the stars wheeled slowly across the sky, bearing witness to something the world had never seen before and would never forget. A queen who burned from within and refused to turn to ash. 3 titans who learned that love was stronger than fear. And a bond forged in fire, tested in battle, and proven unbreakable. Together, they would reshape the world. Or burn it down trying. Either way, they'd do it together. And that was all that mattered.